Conduit is lacking in Guild Wars 2. This is my review of Conduit after testing it in the beta event. Let me know your takes in the comments down below. Thanks as always to all my dear supporters that help me keep the lights on, and now without much further ado, let's jump straight in and let's give you my opinion about Conduit. So Conduit is the new spec that we get for Revenant, and it's supposed to be, I would say, the flexible Revenant Elite spec, because it's really altering how you play the spec depending on the second legend that you choose on top of the Conduit legend being Raza. So does it do that? Yes, to some extent it does it, but I think not good enough. I think it lacks a little bit in terms of the flexibility that it wants to have. It is just not living up to that. And why is that? So I think the resonance effects are just, there is one stance and the elite skill that change depending on the second legend. All the others are not affected by the second legend. And that's a little bit sad, because this just leaves you with one skill that is useful. Typically, if you're Conduit build, you use the Conduit skill. If you use the tanking draw stance, you will have one skill that gives you empoweredness, and you use typically those skills. So I think that makes sense, but the problem is that you don't use any of the other skills. It's a general Revenant problem that you only use the utility skills that actually make sense to use. And I think Raza could have been amazing to just alter all of those skills. All resonances should be affected by the second legend, like it is for the elite skill. That would be really cool. Maybe that was out of scope, but I think that makes it a little bit worse in terms of like the general design of the class. What else do I think is a bit lacking in there? Don't get me wrong, I think it's actually fun to play. I don't want to be only like criticizing it. I just think it's one of the specs that has very much potential, like being a very flexible Revenant spec, which we don't have yet, but it is just not living up to it. It misses some important parts. So I think I want to criticize here with a constructive feedback to actually help it actually get there, because I think it's possible. It's not looking that dull. I think it's actually a fun concept, having this affinity, having Raza as the flexible legend, and also having the cosmic wisdom to change a lot how you play. I think that's actually quite fun. And currently it plays a little bit like a core Revenant Plus, because there is not really like some kind of crazy interactions. You're really reliant on your core legends, and that means, because they are not altered too much, it is not as strong in a lot of situations if you want to be flexible. The only thing that you can play that is really strong is a Conduit DPS build or a power DPS build. You can't play any support builds, you can't play any like cruiser builds. Maybe in PvP and World vs. World you can make some kind of nasty bunker builds or bruiser builds, yeah, I can see that. But everything else, I don't know, it doesn't feel that good. So why is that? Let's dive a little bit deeper here. I personally would say that condition builds are actually quite fun. Let's start with that. I think Conduit builds on Conduit seem like a very strong core Revenant Plus with a lot of Malek's focus and a lot of damage. I like that. Currently you reach around 44.6k, I think, in the benchmarks. That's a good number. It's not amazing, but it's decent. But you can't play it as a quick DPS, elect DPS, whatever, because there is no alacrity or quickness on there. So I think that's my first big feedback here. I think giving it more boon access is very important. We will get to that later again, but I think giving it the access to not only play DPS, but giving it as the flexible legend, some kind of alacrity or quickness, would not only enable it to be more flexible, but it will also enable it to play some kind of healer as well. Because I think you could make a little bit of healing in there, like with Ventari, but now it just does not matter, because you have no quickness or alacrity, so you can't play it as a healer, just straight up, even if the healing would be good. And that's a little bit sad. The same goes for competitive modes. If there would be some kind of boon support in there, like protection, like some kind of more vigor, like whatever, just more aggressive boons as well, maybe even quickness in competitive modes, I think it would be feasible as a support. But right now it seems like really annoying bunkery and bruisery, but not really helping your teammates that much, and that's a little bit sad. In PvE, I think a power build is a little bit worse than a Conduit build, because Shiro is just not providing that much. Especially the teleports are really good in competitive modes, especially I like that skill a lot, the 3-time teleport. I think that's really fun. But in PvE, you have almost no usage for that. So it's like the biggest skill that you get in Raza is just not that useful. And that's what I meant earlier with the resonance effects. If I would change all the skills with the resonance depending on the second legend, I would have way more flexibility which builds are good. If I have a, so to say, skill that is for a specific game mode, and this is the only one that gets changed, you will not use it, and this is the downfall of this whole build. So that's my criticism there. So power is working, but it's not, in my opinion, as like decent as the Conduit build. Now let's talk about the big elephant in the room. the traits, the Grandmaster traits are almost all of them, as far as I know, are either bugged or not working correctly. And that's like horrible. They were build defining. I think they're actually quite interesting in terms of traits design, but they are just not working. You know, some of them go instantly on cooldown, some of them are just like doing some completely different thing. So that's a little bit bad and weird, of course. I hope they fix it. I'm pretty sure they fix it. Just saying, this is something that obviously lets us a little bit down again. I think in general the traits, let's stick with the traits, are actually quite fun. I think the design of the traits is actually quite decent. It is again a little bit like some traits are just completely useless in PvE, but I think it's not too bad because most of them actually could be useful to some extent if there would be some boons in there. That's the biggest criticism. I think the trait design on Conduit looks quite fun. I think the general class design looks quite fun. It is just missing its boon support because Guild Wars 2 is a game about boons. And in all game modes, but especially in PvE. And if you can't provide those boons, then you are just like very inflexible. You can only play DPS. And that goes for all game modes actually. So I think that's a big problem, and I think they could easily fix some of the traits by just adding some boon support in there and make it more interesting and make it a little bit more like you have to choose this if you want to provide the boons, but you lose some aggressiveness or something. I think that would be cool downsides and stuff that you have to mix up. In general, I think that this whole spec is missing something. I think it feels like a core Rev Plus. The Affinity and the Cosmic Wisdom are nice things, but they are not changing the gameplay loop too much. It's really like you are really reliant on your second legend, and this defines the build. Rasa is just there to empower it a little bit. I think it would be even better if you would have some kind of specific skill that really gives you a big nice attack or whatever that is just added on top of that. Maybe another, like whatever, another F skill maybe. I think something on top would make this class perfect, or at least really good. But right now I don't know exactly what it will be or what it could be. But I think it's missing something at least. And it's not only the boons, to be honest. I think the boons would fix the problem, but to make it even like better, I think something special like a new skill or like a build up that you have, that would be amazing. So I think Conduit has potential, but right now it looks like one of the worst specs in the beta, at least for me. And that's a little bit sad. And I also tried because I thought that's amazing, like the Celestial build on there with a lot of stats, like just raw stats power on this, yeah? You can use full Celestial, just buffing up yourself with a lot of extra stats and be just really tanky, do still a lot of damage. That sounds amazing. But in PvE, it's actually quite lackluster. Why is that? Because again, you have no boon support. If you want to play a solo build with Celestial, and you deal some nice damage, that's good. But the problem is you don't deal some nice damage if you can't get Might, if you can't get the really nice boons, because the core traits are the only thing that you can get the boons from. That's lackluster. If you look at Herald, if you look at Renegade, if you look at Vindicator even, all of those have really good boon support in their base kit and can extend that even further with the core traits. But the core traits alone don't provide enough for Conduit to actually get all the boons, so it's very lackluster in a solo build. And I think in a roaming build, I would say it's also the same problem. You really big stat stick, you're missing a bit of boon access there as well. So I think general Conduit looked really fun to play as a full crazy stat stick with a lot of stats on there, but the boons are missing in all game modes. That's like the thing that is like the most important thing. I think they can easily fix that. I think the addition of another skill is a little bit harder to do. That's just something that I wish that this spec had, so that it feels a little bit more distinct from the core Revenant. But the boons are a must, in my opinion. Like I said, let me know your takes in the comments down below. I really think this spec has potential, but in the current beta, it's like one of the worst specs, in my opinion, to play. It doesn't feel as strong and as like powerful as other elite specs, not only in this pack of elite specs, but in all elite specs. So I really hope they give it something, some more bam, that you actually have a chance to actually have fun with it, more than you currently have at least. And I personally also would say that, of course, bug fixes and stuff have to be like done, but I think that's like a given that they will fix all of that I mentioned earlier. And I'm not sure what kind of benchmark we should aim for. I think it's currently fine, so I think the numbers are okay. I think it just needs some help in terms of class fantasy and how it plays out, and just the power level and competitive modes as well. Just my take here. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe. I want to remind you, if you want to see the Paragon version of this review of this beta, be sure to check out this video. And if you want to see the True Beta version, be sure to check out this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks again to all my supporters, and I hope to see you all in the next video.